Welcome back to this particular lecture on polymer ceramic composites for orthopedic applications. In the last lecture, you have learned how to make the polymeric materials like using conventional manufacturing techniques like compression molding or injection molding. So, what I am going to discuss in this particular lecture on the friction and wear of polymer ceramic composites for orthopedic applications. Now, why polymer ceramic? If you recall from your class 10 or 12 biology, natural bone is nothing but collagen, that is a polymer materials, as well as hydroxyapatite as a composite. So, this hydroxyapatite is nothing but Ca10PO4 whole 6 OH whole 2. So, it is a hydrated calcium phosphate compounds, and collagen is a kind of a protein, and this there are different variants of collagen like type 1 to type 10 and so on. But the further discussion on collagen is beyond the scope of this lecture. However, it is important for you to remember that natural bone is nothing but a polymer ceramic composite. So, therefore, significant interest was there in the community to mimic the natural bone composition and properties, and that is why these polymer ceramic composites are being used for certain application for load bearing orthopedic applications. So, orthopedic applications means it is for bone analog materials and also for biomedical applications. Now, if you remember that in the last lecture I have mentioned you have a femoral stem, and this femoral stem it will go to that acetabular femoral head, and femoral head is essentially is that acetabular socket. So, what I am going to show you in next 20 or 25 minutes or so is that how to develop these materials which is made up of the polymer and ceramic composites for the acetabular socket applications. Now, so far there is one of the materials which is widely used in the acetabular socket application is ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. Now, ultra molecular polyethylene has a higher molecular weight. So, higher the molecular weight, more is the viscosity, and more is the viscosity means more difficult would be these polymers to process. Okay. So, if you want to add some new materials, or if you want to add some new phases like ceramic phase like hydroxyapatite or alumina, you cannot do it with ultra molecular polyethylene. So, therefore, what we do, we use the high density polyethylene, we add hydroxyapatite. As I said in the last slide, that hydroxyapatite is the inorganic component of the natural bone. So, if you put this hydroxyapatite to any polymeric matrix, it makes certain bone like properties, it provides certain bone like properties to these materials and alumina. So, what we do, we add some coupling agent. Why coupling agent is required? Because high density polyethylene is a polymeric phase, is a polymeric matrix. Hydroxyapatite is a ceramic phase, alumina is a ceramic phase. Now, to ensure very uniform and homogeneous distribution of the hydroxyapatite and alumina into high density polyethylene matrix, you need to add coupling agent or reactive fillers. After that, you do ball milling. After ball milling, you do compression molding. So, directly after ball milling, you do compression molding, then you do mechanical and tribological properties. Okay. So, what are the different, this is the starting powder. So, high density polyethylene, as you see, this peak is little broad. So, therefore, it is a semi crystalline polymers, it is not a fully crystalline like the case for many other polymers. Now, you have alumina, alumina is also crystalline peak, and hydroxyapatite has a very characteristic 3 peaks which are placed around 30 degree of 2 theta values. So, when you add these two phases like 20% hydroxyapatite and 20% alumina, you get a very clear semi crystalline peak, but this peak width is little bit decreased now in the compression molded samples, and you have hydroxyapatite and you have alumina phase as well in the matrix. Now, how these phases they are distributed in the polymeric matrix. So, essentially what you see, these phases are, these are like alumina, these are the bright particles, and little bit grayish particles is hydroxyapatite. Now, this chemical composition of these two phases can be confirmed by using that EDS, composition analysis of the alumina and hydroxyapatite peak. And then you have a polyethylene, that is, the polyethylene is this chunk of this polymer which are dispersed in the matrix. Now, in terms of the FTIR analysis of this material, so FTIR stands for Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy. This essentially this Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy technique which is used to characterize the surface bonding. Now, in this particular case, we have used that HDP and HDP HAP and alumina. So, this is the one for HDP HAP and alumina, and this is the HDP HAP and alumina with the coupling agent. So, because of this coupling agent, you see that there is a C double bond O peak appears, and there is a shoulder band at around 1000 centimeter inverse, that is essentially C single bond O, that is also forms. And changes in the intensity of these functional groups from the materials with coupling agent and without coupling agent, this indicates there is certain chemical reactivity which this is signature of certain chemical reactivity due to this addition of the coupling agent. Now, in terms of the hardness of these materials, if you see this hardness of the materials, it is increased almost like 3 times from the baseline materials like CS1 is your pure HDP and CS7 is your HDP 20% HAP, 20% alumina. Other materials which are on the line between HDP and HDP 20% HAP and 20% alumina, like CS2 is HDP 20% HAP, CS3 is 20% alumina, CS4 is HDP 40% HAP, CS4 is the 40% HAP and alumina, and CS7 is the 20% HAP and 20% alumina. So, there is also another properties which are important for tribological applications which I have mentioned earlier is that elastic modulus, because if there is a difference in the elastic modulus, suddenly the different magnitude of the Hertzian contrast stresses that will be developed at the tribological surfaces. Therefore, elastic modulus determination is very important. Now, if you notice elastic modulus of the pure HDP is somewhere around 1 gigapascal. If you go to the CS7, like whether HDP HAP 20% alumina with a coupling agent, and CS6 is the HDP 20% of 20% alumina without coupling agent, here you are getting almost like 8 gigapascal, with coupling agent you are getting almost like 11 gigapascal. So, this more is the stiffness, particularly in this window of less than 20 or 30 gigapascal, it is important. Why I am saying that? Because cortical bone or natural bone typically they have a elastic modulus. I am saying that cortical bone, that is a natural bone structure. So, it has a elastic modulus of 2 to 12 gigapascal. So, these materials HDP 20% have 20% alumina can well replace the cortical bone in this physiological system, or it will have a cortical bone replacement property. So, as part of the study we have also done the cell adhesion and cell proliferation study, because cell adhesion and cell proliferation is very important. At the end of the day, these materials are to be used for orthopedic applications. So, therefore, the application specific or target application specific cells like L29, which is like fibroblast cells, fibroblast meaning it is a connective tissue cells. Sarcoma, osteosarcoma, this is like human osteoblast cells. So, these are the cells which are used for this particular in vitro study. In vitro means the experiments which are conducted in the glassware. So, any experiment which is conducted in the glassware in the laboratory scale, they are known as the in vitro test. In vivo means experiments which are conducted in the whole organism, like any experiments which are conducted in the live animal, like putting some materials in the animal, those are the experiments which are called as the in vivo. So, this is that in vitro. Typically when one writes in vitro, that should be always italics, and when one writes in vivo, that should be also italics. The meaning of in vivo is that animal experiments, meaning of in vitro is the experiments which are conducted in the glassware. So, if you look at these images, what you see that this is the cells which are adhering on the material substrates, and this cell proliferation, or if you now quantify that how many number of cells per unit area of these surfaces, you will see that most of the surfaces they actually exhibit comparable cell adhesion behavior. So, none of the materials you can exclude here on the basis of their ability to support the cell adhesion and cell growth. So, also interestingly, certain features you can see, like there is a large cellular philopodia extension. Like human beings, you have hands and legs, cells also have philopodia or lamellopodia, through which cells can expand on a particular physical surfaces, and that is what you can see it here also, like different philopodia extension which is present for the L929 mouse fibroblast cells. So, this is more quantitative information on the cell viability, and this is one of the assay, biological assay that is used is called MTT assay. Now, MTT assay is used to quantify what is the cell numbers and how the cell numbers they increase with number of days, like 3 days to 7 days. Now, if you see for any given material, cell numbers increase with increasing time in culture. If you look at the blue bars or if you look at the green bars, in all these cases the slope may be different, but the cell numbers constantly increase with time, and that is a very good information that how cell numbers they increase with time. Okay. So, that is very important. That means cells are able to multiply or cells are able to divide when they are adhering to the material substrate. So, essentially all these materials whatever we have used, here we have used two control. One is the typical control like tissue culture polystyrene, like which is expected to support the cells. Another one is hydroxyapatite, that is the green one. This is the hydroxyapatite. Why hydroxyapatite? Because hydroxyapatite alone should be able to support the growth of the fibroblast cells. If you look at very carefully, what you see that in most of the cases like this 3 days, 5 days or 7 days, hydroxyapatite can support the maximum growth of the cells, even much better than high density polyethylene 20% have 20% alumina. The reason behind hydroxyapatite is the most bioactive material and high density polyethylene is more bio-inert material. So, if any material which is bioactive, that should in principle support both cell adhesion and cell growth rather than the bio-inert material. This is also the case for the scanning electron microscopic images. You will see that these are the human osteoblast cells like SOS2 sarcoma, osteosarcoma cells. Now, you can see very clear features of the osteoblast which is much more different, because fibroblast is much more spindle shaped. If you see the fibroblast morphology, this is the fibroblast morphology, and osteoblast morphology it is more like more flattened shape. And exactly if you see that this shape is also very different here, and you can see that is more this kind of shape, shell shape. So, essentially the general observation of the osteoblast and fibroblast adhesion that entire cell surface is kind of covered with these kind of features of the fibroblast and osteoblast cells, and they kind of form a very good network of the cells on these surfaces. Now, like fibroblast cells, we have also measured the cell numbers using MTT assay, and again we have taken the cell count at 3 days, 5 days and 7 days. We have used the different kind of control. One is a positive control hydroxyapatite, and also this hydroxyapatite compared to hydroxyapatite, these osteoblast cells here HDP, HAP and alumina, they either they support comparable or even more cell growth on these particular materials. Okay, so we have also done in vivo experiments. This is that mouse model experiment. So you can put this long implanted material here in the femur of this mouse, and then we can do histological experiments and trying to show, these are the experiments which are conducted at All India Institute of Medical Sciences. And then after that, these experiments are over osteoblast and osteoids and implant surfaces, and you can very clearly see that how these osteoblast cells, they are active at the bone material interface. So this is your natural bone, and this is your natural bone, and this is your hydroxyapatite HAP and alumina composites. So in this particular case, we observe that high density polyethylene, HAP and alumina all are biocompatible in both in vitro and in vivo experiments. So what I am going to do is that in the next few minutes I am going to show you that how does this friction and wear properties of these materials, that they vary against the different matting materials, that is that alumina, steel and zirconia ball. So I reiterate my earlier statement that the major motivation for developing high density polyethylene HAP and alumina composite is to mimic the natural bone or cortical bone properties in terms of the phase assemblage, like it has a calcium phosphate and it has collagen in case of cortical bone, but here we have high density polyethylene HAP and alumina. And the salient features of these particular materials which were developed by Bill Bonfield in Cambridge. So that time actually when he was working at Queen Mary University in London, I think Serena Best was also involved in this particular developmental work. So high density polyethylene and hydroxyapatite, they were developed for middle ear orbital implants, and their strength properties were around 17 megapascal and elastic modulus is 0.98 close to 1 or 1.6 gigapascal. We have developed with significant alumina and hydroxyapatite that this particular material can be developed with a much more higher modulus and strength properties. So that what is the rationale or what is the physical principle which can be used for which can be used to explain the enhancement in the physical properties, like you have the alumina particles and you have the hydroxyapatite particles which are shown here by different filled circle or open circle, and you have the high density polyethylene chains which running around the particular materials. What you see that these chains, they can slide past each other, and that can lead to viscoelastic properties in the traditional polymer matrix composites, but which is not the case in this particular case, because the very fact that alumina particles and hydroxyapatite particles, they entangle this polymer chain, that polymer chain cannot be moved just very easily. So if there is more resistance to the sliding of the polymer chain, that would essentially increase more strength and hardness and elastic modulus of the hybrid polymer ceramic hybrid composites, and that is simply the case for high density polyethylene, hydroxyapatite and alumina. But what is more important for you to see here and realize that high density polyethylene alone has a hardness of less than 100 megapascal. When you go to high density polyethylene 20% have 20% alumina, the hardness goes almost like 4 times higher than the compared to baseline HDP. In terms of elastic modulus, which is more important for biomedical applications as well as for tribological applications, it shows an increase from 0.8 gigapascal to 6.2 gigapascal. So 0.8 versus 6.2, it is like 8 times higher elastic modulus compared to HDP, whereas 56.5 to 226.5, it is almost like 4 times higher the hardness. So this increase in the hardness an increase in the elastic modulus is essentially attributed to the fact that there is a concept called physical cross linking. Those who are from the polymer background, they know that polymers can be cross linked by adding sulfur to polymer. The process is known as vulcanization. So, vulcanized rubber or highly cross linked rubber is used for some of the engineering applications because of the fact that it has a very high strength because they are chemically cross linked. In contrast to chemical cross linking, here we are able to physically cross link this material by dispersing high density hydroxyapatite that is which is bioactive hydroxyapatite fillers and alumina which is a bio inert. So, this alumina is used to increase the elastic modulus as such, and hydroxyapatite which is a bioactive which can increase the biocompatibility property or cell compatibility property. Why high density hydroxyapatite uses the biocompatibility? Because hydroxyapatite is the inorganic composition of natural bone. So, because of the chemical similarity and structural similarity with that of the natural bone, hydroxyapatite has the every potential to increase the biocompatibility of any composites containing the same phase. So, this physical cross linking apparently explains well the fact that with addition of the hydroxyapatite with the addition of alumina, one can achieve much higher hardness and much higher elastic modulus properties. These particular materials, if you see that their processing conditions, CM stands for compression molding. So, these are essentially compression molded materials. So, these compression molding materials, after this compression molding, the simple 10 millimeter diameter pellets were used for all these property measurements as well as the microstructure evaluation and XRD. And what is the temperature? Temperature of this compression molding for all these materials is 130 degrees Celsius 0.5 hours. So, 130 degrees Celsius and 30 minutes is the typical compression molding conditions for all these HDP HAP alumina composites. Now, if I remember, if I compare the processing conditions of the typical ceramic, even if you take the example of the pure hydroxyapatite. So, hydroxyapatite is a ceramic phase, and if you take the ceramic powders of hydroxyapatite and if you want to consolidate the hydroxyapatite powders, then you need to sinter the hydroxyapatite powders at least at 1200 degrees Celsius for 2 hours or so to get the dense hydroxyapatite ceramic. So, these compared to the ceramic, the advantages of the polymers that I have mentioned you before, it can be processed at much lower temperature, almost like an order of magnitude lower temperature than most of the ceramic based materials or steel based materials. So, that is the by far the largest advantage of using polymers, because these polymers can be processed at definitely lower temperature while obtaining reasonable properties, but these properties of the polymers can be enhanced through careful addition of the ceramic fillers. Now, these fillers are essentially used to increase the mechanical properties. In the context of biomedical applications, one has to carefully select these fillers like alumina or hydroxyapatite. Hydroxyapatite is anyway, it is a double star materials because it has very good biocompatibility. Also, a ceramic phase may give rise to very large mechanical properties like elastic modulus, unless it is toxic, unless it is not toxic in nature. Some of the ceramic phase can cause toxicity, and this potentially toxic ceramic phase must be avoided in developing any polymer composites for biomedical applications. So, therefore, random selection of the ceramic fillers to increase the hardness or elastic modulus, thereby increasing the wear resistance property should not compromise with the biocompatibility properties. In other words, for biomedical applications, if one needs to use polymer ceramic composites, then one has to carefully choose the ceramic phase to disperse in the polymer, which are also biocompatible in nature. So, in the next class, I will just I will describe the tribological properties of these polymer ceramic composites, and I will also mention the relevance of these tribological properties. If you remember correctly, in the total hip joint replacement, these polymer ceramic composite based materials which forms this acetabular liner, that actually rubs very closely with that of the femoral head, and that is the contacting interface between femoral head and acetabular socket, which experiences maximum wear. So, therefore, we need to understand the different wear mechanisms when these high density polyethylene, hydroxide and alumina, they are slided or fretted against different materials of interest for femoral head, and these materials of interest for femoral head can be either steel or alumina or zirconia. So, depending on what is the materials of interest we use as femoral head, the wear mechanisms can change, as well as the wear rate also can vary significantly. So, that will be the subject of discussion in the next lecture. Thank you.